The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Eleanor's chic London flat in Notting Hill, casting soft golden stripes across the polished wooden floors. Yet, despite the warmth of the early light, a coldness had settled deep within her, a chill that no sunshine could thaw. At 28, Eleanor Holden held a freshly minted doctorate in medicine and bore a name that commanded respect in the halls of St. Augustine's Hospital, one of London's most prestigious medical institutions. On paper, her life gleamed with achievement and promise. In reality, it was shaded in muted grays, a stark contrast to the vibrancy she had once envisioned. The end of her marriage to James left her adrift. Eleanor had arrived in London chasing a fresh start, following in the footsteps of her father, a celebrated architect who had built his fortune designing iconic buildings across the city. The first years were a whirlwind of emotion and relentless work. The hospital tested her limits but also honed her skills, each shift sharpening her expertise. Social life was sparse, constrained by long hours and an unyielding dedication to her patients. But the moments she carved out for herself were precious. Meeting James had been like a breath of fresh air. Charming, with an effortless English wit and a twinkle in his eye, he swept her off her feet. For a while, Eleanor believed she had found her own slice of happiness in this bustling metropolis. They had married in a cozy ceremony amidst the lush gardens of Kew, surrounded by friends, laughter, and the soft chimes of a string quartet. For 2 years, she poured her heart into building the home she dreamed of. But reality, as it so often does, proved less poetic than the sonnets James once read to her on quiet evenings. Beneath his gentlemanly veneer lurked a restless soul, too free-spirited for the life Eleanor craved. The weight of responsibility, finances, future plans, the very foundation of their marriage, slipped through his fingers like London fog. The signs were subtle at first. Missed dinners, forgotten promises, a growing detachment. The painful truth crystallized slowly but clearly. James was not the partner she needed to build the life she envisioned. One afternoon, while James planned yet another impromptu trip with his rugby mates, Eleanor made a decision that shook her to the core. The word divorce felt foreign on her tongue, awkward and yet liberating. Her father, a steadfast pillar since her mother's early departure years before, was unwavering in his support. "Your happiness comes first, Ellie," he said, his deep voice steady and comforting over afternoon tea in his study overlooking Regent's Park. "You're brilliant, talented. The world awaits you." His words were a salve to her wounded spirit. Returning to St. Augustine's, Eleanor threw herself into her work with renewed ferocity. Each diagnosis, each life saved, was a small victory against the sorrow that threatened to engulf her. She was Dr. Eleanor Holden, respected, admired, a rising star who had graduated top of her class and earned every accolade with relentless dedication. Yet beneath the polished exterior of professionalism and success, loneliness gnawed at her. Each evening, when she shed her crisp white coat and replaced it with a soft emerald silk robe embroidered delicately with floral motifs that made her jade green eyes sparkle, a hollow ache settled in her chest. Neither professional acclaim nor her father's affection could fill that void. She was a young woman brimming with life and passion, yet feeling smothered, restrained, her days blurred into a cycle of consultations and surgeries. Her skilled hands moved with precision, but her mind sometimes wandered. Was there someone out there who could share her dreams, match her ambition? Or was she destined to wander alone, craving the deep, intimate connection that had once been hers but now seemed lost to time? James, flawed though he was, had awakened a sensuality in Eleanor that now lay dormant. His wild, uninhibited nature had fostered a physical intimacy that was nearly daily, a fiery thread in the fabric of her existence. Now that absence echoed like an empty chamber, a sharp reminder of what she had lost. How does one return to normalcy after tasting such depths of passion? Her mood swung like a pendulum, between the highs of professional triumph and the silent despair of solitude. Sleepless nights found her tethered only to her laptop, wandering the vast seas of the internet. It began innocently, light-hearted chats, harmless flirtations, reminders that she was still desirable, that her femininity hadn't faded with the end of her marriage. Home. Her tailored suits and stilettos gave way to the silk robes and nightwear that barely contained her curves, revealing the slender sweep of her waist and the length of her legs. Her green eyes, so sharp and clinical in the operating theater, now shimmered with secret longing as they flickered across the screen. But the path she tread was slippery. What started as a search for solace online soon morphed into something more tangible. The conversations grew bolder. Virtual encounters spilled into clandestine meetings in discreet London cafes or dimly lit bars. It wasn't calculated. It was instinctual, primal. A moth drawn to a flame. Nearly a year after her divorce, her body, mind, and spirit demanded release. Loneliness, that silent companion, nudged her into territories her rational self would have condemned. She met strangers, always with the promise of anonymity, no strings attached. It wasn't love, nor even affection. It was a desperate chase after the spark James had ignited. These fleeting encounters burned bright and fast, leaving only smoke in their wake. Returning home, hair tousled and lips swollen, Eleanor would catch her reflection and wonder, who was this woman staring back? The unflappable Dr. Holden, or a shadow shaped by hidden desires? Meanwhile, her father, oblivious to her secret life, was consumed by the project close to both their hearts. Eleanor's new medical clinic. A transformation was underway in a renovated Victorian building in Camden, turning it into a modern sanctuary for healing. The clinic was to be her legacy, a testament to her independence and vision. When the clinic finally opened, its silver sign gleaming in the London drizzle, Holden Medical Center, the sense of purpose was intoxicating. Patients came, drawn by her reputation and word of mouth. Eleanor felt in control, her sanctuary a fortress against the shadows that sometimes crept in. Her pristine white coats and delicate silver rings glinted as she examined patients, each diagnosis a reaffirmation of her strength. But the growing demand for help led her to post a vacancy for an assistant. Many candidates came and went until one day, a young man named Matthew arrived. Tall, with dark tousled hair and deep-set eyes that hinted at untold stories, Matthew's casual linen shirt and well-fitted jeans were a stark contrast to the clinical sterility of the clinic. There was an easy confidence in his stride, a relaxed charm in his smile. When he applied for the secretary role, Eleanor felt an unexpected spark of curiosity. Matthew was a breath of fresh air, his witty remarks and sharp humor lighting up the otherwise orderly world Eleanor inhabited. Their professional rapport soon deepened. Laughter filled the quiet corners of the clinic, and stolen glances promised something unspoken. Eleanor found herself anticipating his arrival each morning, dressed in silk blouses and pencil skirts that hugged her figure just so, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. The air between them crackled with tension. Then one evening, after the last patient left and the clinic was cloaked in silence, the tension snapped. What followed was an impulsive explosion of long-suppressed desires. Matthew's hands found hers, his gaze heavy with longing. The sterile consulting room transformed into a stage of passion. His touch was reverent, awakening Eleanor in a way she hadn't felt in years. Their intimacy was a dance, a secret rhythm shared only between them. Matthew knew her deepest desires, the places others never dared to explore. His fingers traced paths of fire along her neck. His whispers sent shivers down her spine. Each kiss peeled away layers of restraint, leaving Eleanor bare and alive. But like a shadow looming over a flickering flame, Matthew's absence soon became a haunting void. One day he didn't show. Calls went unanswered, messages ignored. The wound left by James reopened, bitterness seeping back into Eleanor's soul. Nights stretched endlessly, her vibrant eyes dimming under the weight of loss. She needed healing, not just for others but for herself. Yet, the irony was cruel. The doctor in need of a cure. Time passed in a haze of exhaustion and sorrow until her father suggested bringing in another assistant. Enter Sophia, a gentle presence with a warm smile and tireless work ethic. Sophia's kindness was a balm, steadying Eleanor as she rebuilt her fragile equilibrium. Months blurred into a steady routine. The memory of Matthew faded, replaced by a calm focus on medicine and care. Eleanor believed she had conquered her thirst for passion, banishing the hunger for intensity. Then, a call from a former colleague. The days that followed felt like walking through a London fog, dense, disorienting, and cold. Eleanor moved through the motions of her life with mechanical precision, the walls of Holden Medical Center offering little refuge from the storm swirling inside her. The sterile corridors, once a sanctuary of purpose, now echoed with the deafening silence of unanswered questions. Her father, ever the steadfast support, noticed the subtle shifts, the slight slump of her shoulders, the pallor that clung stubbornly to her skin, the way her emerald eyes, once bright and determined, now seemed clouded with worry. Over dinner in his elegant Mayfair townhouse, he broached the subject cautiously. "Ellie, love, you've been distant lately. More than usual. You can talk to me, you know that." Eleanor forced a wan smile, lifting her glass of Pinot Noir as if to toast to normalcy. "Just tired, Dad. Work's been demanding." He didn't press further, but his gaze held a quiet concern. She was grateful for that. She wasn't ready to unveil the turmoil beneath her composed exterior. The clinic? Sophia's gentle presence was a balm amid the chaos. The young nurse's warm smile and diligent work made the overwhelming load seem lighter. Yet even Sophia sensed the tension hovering just beneath Eleanor's calm. One rainy Thursday afternoon, as Eleanor sat behind her desk reviewing patient files, the clinic phone rang. The sharp trill sliced through the quiet. She answered on the second ring, recognizing the number instantly. "Eleanor," Javier's voice was low, cautious, almost apologetic. "We need to talk." Her heart thundered, a wild drumbeat threatening to betray the calm she fought so hard to maintain. "Where are you?" she asked, voice trembling. "I'm in town. Can we meet? Please?" The floodgates burst open. Questions, fears, and hopes tangled into a knot of raw emotion. She agreed, setting a time and place. A quiet cafe tucked away in the leafy streets of Hampstead Heath. That evening, Eleanor arrived early, nerves twisting her stomach into tight knots. She wore a deep emerald dress, silk that clung to her form with a subtle sheen, and black suede heels that clicked softly on the polished wood floor. Her hair was swept up loosely, tendrils framing her face, and a delicate silver necklace glinted at her collarbone. There was an elegance in her vulnerability, a magnetic blend of strength and fragility. Javier appeared soon after, his usual confident swagger tempered by an awkward hesitation. His dark eyes held shadows Eleanor hadn't seen before. Regret, fear, something deeper and far more dangerous. "Eleanor," he began, sliding into the seat opposite her. "I'm sorry for disappearing. I didn't know how to handle any of this." His gaze flicked to the small swell of her abdomen, barely noticeable but profoundly present. She studied him, searching for truth beneath the surface. "You have a lot to explain." He nodded, taking a breath as if gathering courage. "I'm involved in things I can't just walk away from. Family, debts. I thought I could keep you out of it, but I was wrong." Her pulse quickened. "What kind of things?" Before he could answer, the cafe door swung open, and a man stepped inside. A tall figure in a sharply tailored navy suit, eyes scanning the room with calculated intensity. Their eyes locked on Javier for a heartbeat too long. Javier's jaw tightened. "We need to go now." Eleanor's mind raced. Danger had arrived unannounced, threatening to shatter the fragile hope she'd dared to kindle. As they hurried from the cafe into the misty London streets, the weight of uncertainty pressed down harder than ever. Back in the sanctuary of her flat, Eleanor stood before the mirror, fingers tracing the curve of her belly. The life growing inside her was a beacon amid the darkness, a fragile promise of new beginnings. But outside, shadows lurked, secrets, threats, and a past refusing to stay buried. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or it won't just be your heart at risk." Eleanor's breath caught. The game she thought she was playing was far more dangerous than she'd imagined. In the silence of her apartment, she whispered to the empty room, "What have I gotten myself into?" And somewhere, unseen but ever present, the pieces of a puzzle were beginning to fall into place. Pieces that could either save her or destroy everything she held dear. The question lingered in the air. Who was truly watching her? And what price would she pay for the truth? The rain had eased to a gentle drizzle as Eleanor stepped out onto the slick cobblestones of Hampstead High Street, the night air crisp and tinged with the scent of damp earth and brewing secrets. The encounter at the cafe haunted her every thought. Javier's sudden departure, the ominous figure in the tailored suit, the shadows trailing him like a second skin, left a sinister taste on her tongue. Her pulse still thrummed with adrenaline, mingling fear with a strange, intoxicating thrill. Back in her flat, the city lights flickered through the sheer curtains, casting elongated shadows across the faded floral wallpaper. A quiet testament to the neighborhood's old-world charm. Eleanor slipped out of her emerald dress, the silk whispering against her skin as it pooled onto the floor, revealing the delicate curve of her neck and the smooth line of her shoulders. She stood before the mirror, her reflection a study in contrasts. The poised doctor the world admired and the vulnerable woman wrestling with a secret too heavy to carry alone. Her fingers traced the silver necklace resting just above her heart, a subtle gift from her father that now felt like a fragile talisman against the gathering storm. The message on her phone burned in her mind. Stop digging, or it won't just be your heart at risk. The threat was clear, but so was the challenge it posed. Determined, Eleanor knew she couldn't retreat into the sterile safety of her clinic any longer. The stakes had shifted. What began as a personal crisis now tangled with forces far beyond her control. She needed answers and allies. The next morning, she arrived at Holden Medical Center earlier than usual, the crisp autumn air biting at her cheeks. Sophia greeted her with a concerned smile, noticing the dark circles under Eleanor's eyes. "Tough night?" Sophia asked softly, offering a steaming cup of Earl Grey. Eleanor accepted, the warmth seeping into her hands. You could say that as the clinic doors opened to the day's first patients. Eleanor's thoughts churned. Javier's words echoed in her mind. Family debts, dangers lurking in shadows. Was he a victim, or a player in a game she had yet to fully understand? Her first patient was a frail, elderly man with trembling hands and a twinkle in his eye that reminded Eleanor of her grandfather. She examined him with gentle expertise, the routine momentarily grounding her. Yet, even amid the normalcy, the undercurrent of tension pulled at her. During a brief lull, Eleanor retreated to her office, pulling out a worn leather-bound journal she kept hidden. A relic from her university days filled with notes, sketches, and cryptic observations. She flipped through the pages, searching for any clue that might connect Javier's past to the present threats. A sudden knock at the door startled her. It was Matthew, her former assistant, now a trusted friend. "Hey," he said, stepping in with his trademark easy grin. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Eleanor let out a tired laugh. "Something like that." Matthew's eyes softened. "If you ever need someone to watch your back, you know where to find me." His presence was a comforting anchor, a reminder that amidst the chaos, not all was lost. Later that evening, Eleanor sat at her kitchen table, the city's hum a distant lullaby. Her phone buzzed again. A new message, this time from an untraceable number. "Meet me at the old clock tower at midnight. Alone. Come if you want answers." Her breath hitched. The clock tower was a forgotten relic in the heart of Camden. A place whispered about in local legends and shadowed by decades of neglect. The choice was perilous. But Eleanor's resolve was steel beneath the trembling surface. She stared into the mirror one last time, adjusting the soft black blouse and tailored trousers she had chosen for the night. Practical yet alluring, a subtle nod to the woman beneath the healer's coat. Her dark hair was pulled back loosely, a few strands escaping to frame her determined face as she stepped into the London night. The city's pulse quickened around her. The answers awaited, but so did dangers that could consume her entirely. And in the deepening darkness, Eleanor Holden embraced the unknown, ready to face whatever awaited beneath the shadow of the ancient clock tower. But as the hands of the clock neared midnight, a silent observer watched from the rooftops. A figure cloaked in black, eyes gleaming with cold intent. The game was far from over. The night air was thick with mist as Eleanor approached the old clock tower in Camden, its iron skeleton silhouetted against the moonlit sky like a ghostly sentinel. The air smelled of damp stone and forgotten memories, and every footstep echoed ominously on the cracked pavement. The tower, once a proud landmark, now stood abandoned, its face cracked and hands frozen at midnight. An eerie monument to time suspended, Eleanor's pulse quickened. Not just from the chill but from the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows. But the street behind her was deserted, save for the flickering glow of a distant street lamp. She took a deep breath, smoothing the dark blouse that clung just enough to hint at the curves beneath, paired with a pencil skirt that swept just below the knee, accentuating the long, lithe lines of her legs. Her black stilettos clicked softly against the stone, a rhythmic tap that seemed to defy the silence. "Hello, Dr. Holden." The voice was low, smooth, and startlingly close. Eleanor spun around to find Javier stepping from the shadows, his dark eyes gleaming with a mixture of apology and something more dangerous. Desire? Desperation? "I wasn't sure you'd come," he admitted, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Or if you'd be safe if you did." Eleanor's heart pounded. "Why here? Why now?" He hesitated, then gestured toward the tower. "There's something you need to see." Curiosity wrestled with caution, but Eleanor followed him inside. The heavy metal door groaned as it opened, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling upward into darkness. Their footsteps echoed as they climbed, the air growing colder and more oppressive with each step to the top. The chamber opened into a small, circular room beneath the clock face. Moonlight filtered through the cracked glass, casting fractured shadows on the worn floorboards. In the center lay a battered leather briefcase, its brass clasps tarnished with age. Javier knelt to open it, revealing folders thick with documents, photographs, and a tangle of letters tied together with a faded blue ribbon. "This is my family's history," he said quietly. "Secrets that have been buried for decades. Debts, betrayals, and enemies who still watch from the dark." Eleanor reached out, fingertips brushing over a photograph of a stern-looking man with cold eyes. Javier's father, she guessed. "They want me to disappear," Javier continued, "to keep me quiet about what I know. But I couldn't leave things like this. Not when you're involved." Eleanor's mind raced. The danger was real, and it was closer than she'd imagined. Yet beneath the fear was a flicker of something else. A spark of connection, of shared struggle. "Why tell me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Because you're not just a patient or a fling," Javier said, stepping closer. "You're the only person I trust." The tension between them was electric, charged with months of suppressed desire and the weight of unspoken truths. Eleanor's green eyes locked onto his, a silent question hanging in the air. Before she could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed from below. The heavy, measured pace of someone approaching with purpose. "We have company," Javier warned, eyes narrowing. They moved quickly, slipping down a side staircase and out through a hidden door into the narrow alley beyond. The night swallowed them as they darted through twisting streets, the looming presence of the clock tower fading behind them. Breathless and shaken, Eleanor paused beneath a street lamp, her heart still racing. "Who was it?" she asked, voice trembling. Javier glanced back, dark eyes shadowed. "Someone who doesn't want these secrets uncovered. Someone powerful." Eleanor swallowed hard. The life she tried to rebuild was unraveling, thread by thread. But amid the danger and deceit, a fierce resolve ignited within her. She was no longer just a doctor healing others. She was a woman fighting for her own survival, and for the future of the life growing inside her. As the first light of dawn tinged the horizon, Eleanor made a silent vow. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Yet, in the quiet shadows, the figure from the rooftops watched and smiled. A predator closing in. The game had only just begun. The pale morning light seeped through the tall sash windows of Eleanor's flat, casting long, soft shadows across the worn wooden floorboards. She sat at her kitchen table, the steaming cup of black coffee untouched before her, fingers wrapped tightly around the rim as if it could anchor her in the swirling tempest of recent events. The weight of Javier's revelations and the ominous threat still pressed heavily on her chest. Despite the exhaustion threading through her muscles, the fire of determination burned brighter than ever. She was no longer content to be a pawn in someone else's dangerous game. The life growing within her gave her purpose beyond the sterile walls of her clinic or the uncertain promises whispered in the dark. With a steadying breath, Eleanor rose and moved to her desk, pulling open a drawer to reveal a small, well-worn notebook. Inside were notes from her medical training, personal reflections, and, more recently, carefully collected information about Javier's tangled past. She had spent sleepless nights piecing together fragments of truth, each discovery sharpening her resolve as she pored over the documents. Her phone chimed. A message from an unknown number. *, meet me at the Rosewood Library at noon. Come alone. Answers await. *, her pulse quickened. The Rosewood Library was a grand Victorian building nestled in the heart of Bloomsbury, a place steeped in history and whispered secrets. The hours until noon dragged, each tick of the clock echoing loudly in the quiet apartment. Eleanor dressed with deliberate care. An elegant navy sheath dress that hugged her silhouette just so, paired with a tailored trench coat and comfortable yet stylish ankle boots. A simple silver pendant glimmered at her throat, a talisman against the unknown as she arrived at the library. The heavy oak doors creaked open, inviting her into a world of dusty tomes and whispered knowledge. The scent of aged paper and polished wood enveloped her, a comforting contrast to the chaos outside and a secluded corner. Beneath a stained glass window casting kaleidoscopic patterns on the marble floor, a figure awaited. A woman with striking features and sharp eyes that held both warmth and steel. Dr. Holden, the woman greeted, extending a hand.
I'm Margaret Carlyle.
I believe we share a common interest. Eleanor shook her hand, curiosity piqued. Margaret's presence radiated confidence, tempered by a hint of urgency. I know about Javier's family. Margaret continued, lowering her voice. And the dangers that have followed him for years. I've been tracking their movements, and their enemies. Eleanor leaned in, hunger for answers igniting her every nerve. There's more at stake than you realize, Margaret warned. This isn't just about debts or old grudges. It's about power, influence, and a secret society that has infiltrated the highest levels of our city. Eleanor's breath caught. The stakes had escalated beyond personal peril. Margaret slid a folder across the table. A collection of articles, coded messages, and photographs linking prominent figures to clandestine meetings and shadowy dealings. We need to be careful, Margaret said. But together, we can unravel this. As they delved into the labyrinth of conspiracies, Eleanor felt the weight of isolation lift, replaced by the strength of alliance. Yet, as the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows through the library's Gothic arches, a chilling thought crept into Eleanor's mind. In this game of secrets and lies, trust was the most fragile and dangerous weapon of all. Outside, the city moved obliviously on. But for Eleanor, the line between ally and adversary blurred, and the next move could mean salvation or destruction. And somewhere, hidden in the labyrinthine streets of London, the eyes watching her grew sharper, the threat more imminent. The clock was ticking.